An early morning shooting claims the life of one male.
Here are why one parent says government's free BTVI promise was a false one.
Our News is brought to you by Alive.
Welcome to Our News and thanks for joining us. I'm Kyle Joaquin. Topping news tonight, just 2 weeks after he was sworn in as Chief Justice, Stephen Isaacs has died at age 63. Hailed as a judge's judge, Isaacs was surrounded by family members and friends when he passed away in Doctors Hospital this morning. Less than 3 hours after his death, this bus carrying the body of Chief Justice Stephen Isaacs left Doctors Hospital around 1:30 this afternoon. Loved ones were reportedly at Isaacs' bedside when he passed away around 11 a.m. Relatives and friends said they were too grief-stricken to speak as they left the hospital, only asking for privacy. Isaacs died just 2 weeks after he was sworn in as Chief Justice by Governor General Dame Marguerite Pinley. During that brief ceremony, Isaacs was all smiles as he pledged to do all he could to make the country's judicial system more efficient.
I, Stephen Isaacs, do swear that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II, her heirs and successors according to law.
This moment followed months of criticism by members of the judiciary, who had called on the Prime Minister to appoint Isaacs as the substantive Chief Justice after having served as acting CJ on 8 occasions. In a statement today, the Cabinet of the Bahamas said, Chief Justice Isaacs throughout his career was universally lauded as being a judge's judge, of being in all things the epitome of the highest standards of conduct of a judicial officer, and for upholding the rule of law, justice, order, and proper decorum in his courtroom. Isaacs was called to the Bahamas Bar in 1982 and commenced his judicial career in 1994 when he was appointed Assistant Registrar of the Supreme Court. In 2015, he was promoted to Senior Justice of the Supreme Court. He was 63. While opposition leader Philip Davis said in a statement, Chief Justice Isaacs served his country well and did his best to administer the law without fear or favor. He added Isaacs was a good Bahamian who went home to a greater reward, having served his country well. In other news, a man was murdered inside a wrap shop in Balfour Avenue this morning. Police say both the victim and his alleged shooter were known to them. Jillian Gray has details.
It was shortly before 10 a.m. this morning that an armed assailant entered FML Web Shop, then shot and killed a man.
A young man entered this establishment, went into the restroom. A short time later, the patrons of the establishment heard one shot go off. The man emerged from the restroom, approached a customer, said something to him, and shot him multiple times before he ran from this establishment.
Police press liaison officer Shanton Knowles says both the victim and the assailant were known to police. Though police have not yet released the victim's identity, area residents who knew him say his name is Benji and he was a regular at this web shop. With 63 murders recorded so far this year, one resident said it is sad that homicides are becoming a way of life.
That's a normal thing. It's part of life.
Officers called on anyone with information on this latest killing to come forward.
We are appealing to those who were in this business place at the time of this incident, who have information to assist us with this investigation, to give us a call on our Crime Stoppers line or the Central Detective Unit or our 911 919 numbers.
Reporting for Our News, I'm Julian Gray.
A high-speed police chase ended with officers shooting and killing a man said to be in possession of a firearm. Assistant Commissioner CLAYTON FERNANDER says officers were on White Alley arresting a suspect found with an illegal firearm when they heard gunshots being fired just one street over on Moore Avenue. Officers then proceeded that street to investigate.
On arrival through that corner, they saw a young man on a motorbike who was armed with a handgun firing shots in the air. When the individual saw the officers exit the vehicle after he was ordered to stop, the individual fired at the officers and pulled off. Officers got back into their vehicle. There was a high-speed chase, which ended up right here. This is Lucky Art Corner. This is just off East Street to the dead end.
Police say when the man got off his motorbike, he continued to fire at officers. That's when the fatal shot was fired. Several cars and the man's bike were sprayed with bullets during crossfire. The coroner was on scene as the matter will be forwarded to the coroner's court.
I want to send a stern warning out there to those who want to live that life of crime to stop it. At the end of the day, if you continue, this will be the end result. We don't want it to end like that. So if you're involved in the life of crime, we encourage you to stop.
Distraught family members who were on the scene identified the man as Anthony Fowler. Fernander encouraged parents to partner with police.
I just want to encourage parents to talk to their children if they know that they're involved in the life of crime and they are keeping bad company, to try to encourage them to move away from that lifestyle. And if they need some assistance, there's always people out there who are willing to help. They could go to the pastor, they could come to the police. And as you can see, we always move into the school, talking to the young people to try to steer them in the right direction.
Former executive chairman of Bahamas Power and Light, Donald Osborne, and 2 other former board members released another statement refuting claims made by Public Works Minister Desmond Bannister. They also addressed in great detail other matters that have resulted in an unholy mess at the company, including Osborne's salary and questions regarding the Shell NA contract. On Tuesday, Bannister said that Osborne submitted her makeup bill to the tune of hundreds of dollars to BPL for payment. However, the statement explained that BPL's public relations consultant had arranged for a number of staff to be photographed as part of a project to upgrade the company's website and other corporate promotions. In the spirit of transparency, the 3 former board members said they support the release of all expenses submitted to the company by Mrs. Osborne and all former board members. According to the statement, the public needs an explanation on why Patrick Rollins remains a part of the executive of the company after resigning from the board. They added the public might also appreciate an explanation as to why Ferran Bethel, the only director of the so-called dysfunctional board, was reappointed to the new BPL board. Well, Bahamas Hotel Corporation Chairman Michael Scott has revealed that the government hopes to find a buyer for the Grand Lucayan Hotel over the next 3 to 6 months. His comments follow the Prime Minister's announcement on Wednesday that government put down a $10 million deposit for the $65 million hotel, signed a sales agreement, and hopes to wrap up the purchase within 30 days. We asked Tourism Minister Dionisio de Aguilar about that timeline.
We're very confident.
De Aguilar said while it is a risk, it is one worth taking.
Life is about risks, right? And we could sit in the bullpen and do nothing. So we've decided to get out of the bullpen, walk up to the plate, and swing the bat. It's a risk, but we've got to take that risk.
Scott will chair a special purpose vehicle board which will seek to find a buyer for the resort. He said the SPV Lucayan Renewal Holdings Limited will focus on stabilizing the resort, keeping the 423 staffers at Lighthouse Point employed, and finding a buyer with a vision. Well, meanwhile, the tourism minister revealing that a move to invest funds into the reopening of the Memories Resort in Grand Bahama would be Plan B for the minister's administration. De Aguilar says the government will only seek to reopen the resort if a buyer for the Grand Lucayan property cannot be found as quickly as they would like. With more on this, here's Jason Brown.
There are going to be 2 trains that are moving. The first train is going to try to sell the hotel, and the other train is to start thinking about how we're going to renovate Memories. So if the sale doesn't happen at the speed at which we want it to, at least we are starting to plan for the renovation of Memories.
De Aguilar was among more than a dozen cabinet ministers who visited the large property with Prime Minister Dr. Hubert Minnis on Wednesday. The Grand Lucayan closed in 2016 after Hurricane Matthew. The resorts feature 3 brands: Memories, Breakers Key, and Lighthouse Point. In November 2016, only the 200-room Lighthouse Point reopened. After wrapping up the tour, Dr. Minnis announced that the government may open Memories. But last week, De Aguilar told the media that the government was only interested in purchasing the resort, holding it, and finding a buyer. Less than a week later, it was a different tune, as he explained why the government would open Memories.
If the sale takes a little bit longer than we think, then we can contemplate moving forward on the renovation of that property. It doesn't seem like it's that much to get that property open.
Like the Prime Minister, De Aguilar says what is still a definite no-go is renovations at Breakers Key.
The government does not want to be in the business of undertaking that challenge. we think that would be better left for the private sector and for the new owner to take on that challenge.
As for the casino that was once housed on the property, D'Aguilar says the government has no intention of getting it up and running. However, he admitted it may be tricky finding a buyer to run the hotel and casino.
Casinos require scale. We have to give that a little bit more thought. We're certainly not going to open it. Obviously, a future purchaser would have to contemplate how best to do that.
Reporting for our News, I'm Jasmine Brown.
Still to come on our news, parents of BTVI students question government's promise of free tuition. Stay tuned.